What's up, YouTube? Just give me a second. I'm getting my Instagram going. Should work. I didn't mess it up. Cool. All right, I think we're live. So hopefully everyone can kind of get in here, kind of give them a second to go. I know no one's here yet. It's a little bit awkward. I have to get off Facebook. Eventually I will have it so that my Facebook is on the Shane D comedy page, but I'm just not quite there yet. So hello, welcome. If you are on the Daily Shane D, no need for another hello. If not, you're missing out. Go check it out. That's a little bit more PG-13, but does give you an insight into my life. I know it's a lot of videos. Bear with me. Gonna figure it out to try to keep it less and less. I'd love to get that down to like 7 minutes. This one kind of around 7 minutes or so. But one thing that's interesting is we actually get to write jokes live here. So just kind of looking at the quick agenda, if I may. So we're going to say hello, which I just did. Write a joke live, which is the next step. We're going to do a little bit of my stand-up breakdown, just kind of talk about it. Going to give a daily recap, which is a little bit more raunchier than just, raunchier than just my normal Facebook one. And then also going to ask for feedback and then sign off goodbye. Try to keep this under 10 minutes. Just kind of announcing it to people. I won't say who's in the live, unless you want to be there. So I don't really do it unless there's any sort of comments or interaction. Otherwise, feel free to sit there. I don't mind that at all. So anyways, I said hello. Now's our time to write a joke. I kind of said that we would write a joke about Romeo and Juliet, which I'll get into. I did kind of have my offensive joke about Jesus, where I was like, oh, this is my impression of Jesus doing stand-up, and I did like the cross joke. It's actually funny. This was a joke my dad tried to give me, but turns out it was stolen. I was just making kind of a little joke with him about like Jesus jokes, religious jokes. No big deal, but we were just trying to see like if it was even possible without being totally offensive. And so this one's a joke he stole, it turns out. And there's actually two jokes he stole, which are pretty funny. But one of them goes, did you hear about the blonde girl or do you know why the blonde girl went to church? And you go, oh, I don't know why. Well, she heard there was a guy who was hung like this. And you can't really see it on Instagram, but the point is you like bring your hands wide out and then you go out like that, like he is. Yes, it's pretty offensive, I get it. The other joke is that, I can maybe go back a little so that it gets more of me. But the other joke he said was like, did you know they wrote about like menstruating or PMS in the Bible? And then he goes, yeah, like they said, and Mary rode Joe's ass all the way to Bethlehem, which is a pretty good one there. Not a bad one, topical. I think you're supposed to actually say like Matthew, whatever. I don't even know if it's real or not. But anyways, that's the joke. Now we're going to get into writing a joke. We'll do about Romeo and Juliet, I guess. I feel like I had another one that I thought of. That's a funny topic. Yeah, we'll start with Romeo and Juliet. So just to give background, I finally figured out what the heck's going on because all the times I've seen it or heard of Romeo and Juliet, I never understood why Romeo ends up killing himself. Well, it turns out, kind of similar to the play that I was going to do, Juliet is forced to marry a dude that's an arranged marriage. In order to get out of it, she pretends to kill herself, which I don't fully get, but she never told Romeo, right? And then because she doesn't tell Romeo, Romeo goes and sees her and is just like, oh my God, she's dead, my Juliet. Too bad that he doesn't actually like wait for someone to pronounce her dead, because then he goes, gets poisoned, and he's like next to her, drinks the poison. Then Juliet wakes up, sees his poison, and kills herself. So it ends up being an accidental double suicide. Not saying suicide's funny, but I do think there's something in terms of like relationship or not listening that could be funny. So things that I thought of with this joke is like, like even during William Shakespeare's times, like men just never listened or something like that. Because if only he listened, like he wouldn't have killed himself. The other one might be just like, wow, it's a classic case of where girls think that a guy can read their minds. You know what I mean? Like something that would be avoided if they just said it out loud. So I don't know if I really have a full orchestrated joke there. I'm not going to like string this out too long, but I'll say like up until maybe the next like minute and a half. So around like 6 minutes is when I'll call it quits on that. But yeah, so I'm thinking definitely something to do with like women wanting men to read minds. And again, that's like the setup. I need kind of a punchline there. And the other one is like men sucking at listening. Or doing something without thinking it through. Because don't we all do that? Doing something without thinking through. I'm trying to think. The other thing is just kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm just thinking like, would I really have drank the poison? I'm right, I'm just writing everything down right now. Would I really drink the poison? And obviously one thing I need to start doing is like being better about the actual method of writing a joke. I'm very new on it. I still haven't even read the full comedy Bible that goes into like the breakdown. But essentially you just always have a setup and a punchline. Sometimes you can do a punchline into your setup. But yeah, we're working on that. So would I really drink the poison? Like they never got out of the honeymoon phase. Kind of have a question like, did they ever even have sex? Was it worth it? Kind of think about like in heaven, the fight they would have. So we're kind of nearing 6 minutes right now. So I obviously don't have an actual punchline, and I don't think I'm going to get one tonight, but maybe we'll just continue this on. So, people are watching after the fact. Think about how Romeo and Juliet would have a joke. Maybe somehow connected with like Hamlet or some other William Shakespeare play. Possibly even just like something with the real world or like The Bachelor. Just trying to think like connect to Bachelor, etc. I don't know. Think of punchline. So what I promise you is over the next day, I'll give you a joke no matter how crappy it is. I'll do my best. I actually tend to do all right with, quick jokes. The thing that I actually learned recently is sometimes a joke will make someone laugh the first time, maybe even the second or third time, but you really want to try it out 10 times until you know it's like really solid. And you'll start to see like within those 10 times, certain words making it funnier, certain words not so much, and vice versa. So that's a good like example of trying to write a joke on the fly. Obviously, just 2 minutes here because we don't want to spend too much time doing it. Not the easiest thing to do, but it is possible. So hopefully that inspires some of you to just start writing jokes. Now that I tell people I'm a comedian, they give you all these long-winded stories that maybe the right comedian can make work, but you really have to like, if it's longer than, sorry, I just have something stuck in my throat. But if it's longer than like a minute even, you really have to start feeding breadcrumbs though that are like sort of funny so that the audience continues on. You don't want to just like leave them hanging for 2 minutes for like one little punchline. Someone was kind of saying is like, you have all this setup for very little funny. It's like, it's more important to have more funny in the punchline and less setup. Even if it kind of makes them question a little bit, connecting dots. If it's really funny, you won't need that much setup. And in fact, like you really shouldn't aim for that much setup anyways. So recap on my stand-up. If you have seen it, I have a joke like about rich white girls and transgenders. Didn't land as good as it landed the other times in terms of like the 10 rule. It didn't help that I had like 2 or 3 transgenders in the crowd this time. And I didn't know it until after the fact. There's actually the funny story, not that there's a transgender there. And I do want to note, obviously my ADHD going crazy. I do want to note that it's not even a joke on transgender people. It's a joke on rich white people and specifically rich white women. And I just think like in general, it's kind of funny that, these white girls pay all this money to get like their lips done, their tits done, whatever. And then it's like literally they end up just looking like a guy who had a sex change operation. And it's, I guess a little bit it's a spit in the face on transgender, but I do think it's more spit in the face and like, well, congratulations. Like anyone can literally look like that with enough money. So that's kind of my point there, is what it is. Yeah. So anyways, the funny thing was I'm like telling the joke, most people kind of laughing, but after I said the transgender joke, which is like how I started, this one guy refused to laugh, and he's dating one of the transgenders, and so like clearly he's either not comfortable in his own shoes or just like really pissed off for her. I actually think she laughed more than he did at some of my other jokes, like opened up. There was a little bit of an awkward situation at the end where there's a girl that I think she's just probably a lesbian and just, she didn't seem transgender, but she has a high-pitched voice, looks like a girl that just kind of dresses like a boy. And I tried to like introduce myself to her at the end, and she kind of dogged me a little bit. We talked for a moment, but I think even her, she was like, nah, you're not getting my time of day. Is what it is. I'm a nice guy, so it kind of sucks, but, that's the risk of telling a joke like that. Sometimes you're going to ostracize people. Even my own brother's been mad at some of the jokes I say, so it's just something you get over, you have to be responsible for. There's consequences to any action. So something to consider. The joke didn't even land that well, so I'm like, maybe I get rid of it eventually. Who knows? It was actually one of my first jokes I wrote. So, It's tough to get rid of, a little bit close to the chest there. Anyways, what I do want to talk about, and I want to be careful not saying and too much, but I'm an independent politically, which is like terrible down in the South because you do have some liberal kind of Democrats, and then you mostly have conservative Republicans, and I'm so not conservative enough to be a Republican, and I'm really not liberal enough to be a Democrat. I find that the more older I get and the more I'm down here, I lean towards Republican, but I just still am not like full blown Republican. I'm a libertarian at heart. I joke that I'm a liberal libertarian, and so I think really there should be less government. I would love actually for the states to have more power and control than the actual federal is what it is. I'm also someone I'm like fuck having the income tax. We should totally get rid of that. That was something that was brought up because of like we were at war. Yeah. And I'll probably get killed for saying it, but I have a lot of qualms with the Federal Reserve, and they're not even federal. I heard somewhere that people on the Titanic that were for the Federal Reserve actually got off the boat beforehand, and then basically it was like a cover up to just kill people that were opposed to it. I also heard JFK was opposed to the Federal Reserve, and they made it look like a mob hit. So you heard it here first. I just got tested yesterday for all this health stuff and life insurance. I'm pretty healthy, healthiest I've ever been. If they kill me and take me out and say it's a heart attack, just know that the government could kill anyone because I'm not even a big time streamer. I just said something wrong. I'm sure NSA is like flagging this, that they're like, he's on to us. The Federal Reserve, let's take him out. Okay. Anyways, last thing I'll say about being independent, I try to do a joke upon it being kind of like a child of divorce where you're like stuck in the middle, just trying to get along with both parents. Totally did not make anyone laugh, so kind of threw that one out. Maybe in the brainstorm we can think of how to make that laugh happen. I think in certain states it might work better than down in South Carolina, is what it is. So I'm already at 12 minutes. I just want to be careful of that. I do want to say I got some great response from people in the crowd after the fact. They were just really helpful. Like, they're like, oh, you're doing great, seeing the improvement. I did change up some jokes, threw in some new ones, pulled out some that I felt were repetitive, kind of trimming it back a little bit. I think I have a better, tighter set, but I do want to maybe throw some of those jokes back in, get some new ones going. And I feel like I've hit a little bit of a writer's block where just most of my jokes, like I said, that were on the joke book have been translated into a note card. So I need to kind of like tighten that up, just freshen that up, yada, yada, yada. So one of the last things I'll say in terms of kind of the update on this, I do think that the audio does not do it justice. When I listen to it after the fact, the laugh sounds so much quieter. There was one point where like the laughs were basically like in my face, so loud. I'm hoping that it's just because when I listen to it the first time, I'm usually driving home in my truck, which is like a V8, weird flex, not really a flex, but just it's loud as hell in my ear. So sometimes the laugh doesn't quite land as well. But I also just think it's like you're using an iPhone camera, and so it's like adjusting to the sound of the mic, which is loud, and then it's also like on the ground because it's propped up like that. And so, that's my excuse. But that kind of made me lose a little confidence because after the fact, I'm just like, oh man, some of those jokes that were hitting weren't hitting tonight. And then when you listen to it, it just doesn't sound as good. Whatever, I'm not going to let it get discouraged. It wasn't a bomb. People still laughed. After the fact, one guy came up to me and was like, oh, I love the dark humor. He's like, your racist jokes were hilarious. He was black too, by the way. So it wasn't like he was like, oh, you're racist and offensive. He was just like, no, those are like just on the line of offensive and funny, which is what I'm going for. There was another guy who talked about when he did stand-up, he bombed. And I was like, oh, come to the, Comedy Cabana on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Why not? Doesn't hurt. And there was a few other people I invited, which would be great. Like, ultimately, we want more local comics. We want people to not be afraid. I don't feel afraid, but it did stink a little. Felt like maybe I plateaued a little bit from last week, just a little bit. Had a couple better grasp, but just need to practice better. Cool. Daily update on Raunchy. The older woman that I've been flirting with, I don't know if she's feeling it. She was going to come tonight, but she's been sick. She's kind of like weird to get a hold of, or to, what do I want to say, like to get a read on text-wise. There was one day where she was absolutely on fire. Then she called me after, and I was like, oh man, she's digging me. And then it's funny how like when someone's into you, you're less into them, and I'm just a scumbag like that. So it's weird. It's almost like I don't know how to approach it. And then also, I'm just kind of thinking like she's not really texting me first. So I'm like, I don't know if she's that interested. Weird that like when we're together, it's like, moths to a flame. I'm weird and I read astrology and I'm like, oh, we actually could be pretty compatible where she's like an Aries and I'm Pisces. But at the end of the day, like, it's not really meant to be in terms of age and stuff like that. And I'm kind of one to believe like, c'est la vie. which, to me just means like what is meant to be will be. I don't even know if that's the true definition, but that's just how I say it. So again, I'm way over, close to 15. Oh, I'm at 15 minutes. Nice. So just want to quickly get through this. Appreciate everyone joining and the support. Thinking of content ideas. Definitely tomorrow at the baseball game, going to try to do some interviews. Also thinking about like a weekly podcast, which would be nice, kind of longer term. Maybe it'd break some of the late night Shane show up a little bit, so I don't always have to do it. I also think maybe it's a case-by-case basis, but I do think the Writing a Joke Live has some potential, so I'm going to keep trying that one out. If you join late, definitely check it out, Writing the Joke Live. We didn't get a full punchline, but we tried. We're working on it. Would love the input from you guys. Anything you can think of. This was Romeo and Juliet themed. I think we're going to play part 2 tomorrow on that until we get at least one joke out of it. Cool. So I'm thinking in terms of like the interviews as well as like a mobile live. It's just difficult to use your phone. I don't even think it's possible to stream on multiple. So right now I'm on like Twitch, YouTube. Sometimes I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I don't think that'd be possible. So I'm thinking just Instagram. And I'm also thinking of doing it on my comedy page so I don't flood people too much. Let me know your thoughts on that. For now, I'm going to just kind of, I don't know, either flood the comedy page or Amini Amor. The problem with Amini Amor is I really have no followers there. So it'd kind of be like streaming to no one. That's also why I'm thinking not YouTube yet, because I just don't have enough subscribers there. Maybe eventually YouTube would be the best place, because whether someone has an account or not, YouTube's always available. Anyways, as I said, really late. Want to thank everyone for their support, for joining in, after the fact, during the live. Really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to this. I know I'm all over your feed right now, and some people are way more supportive than others. I appreciate it. That's all I can say. I'm trying my best to get it down. Like I said in my last call, I really want to have most of my stuff out by noon and then do a lot of this stuff later in the day. Maybe do it earlier live for the Daily Shandy. But I do think the late night Shane show will always be kind of later, like a last final recap or sign off. That's just kind of how I see it right now. Anyways, any feedback you have, good, bad, ugly, keep doing, stop doing, content you guys want me to add on, different maybe exercises we can do or whatever, send it out there. Send it via message, send it via comments. I'd love to hear about it. And I love you guys. I hope you're getting something out of this. I hope that it's not just a waste of y'all's time. I know most people say it's not, so I'm going to keep doing it. That keeps me going. The fact that even if just one person says they like it, that's enough for me. But I know it's a lot more than that. There's some people that are kind of sitting back. They watch the video and they don't say much. But then when I see them in person, they're like, oh, I love your videos. So I'm going to keep doing it. No reason to stop now. Confidence through the roof. A little bit of a down day in terms of... thought I could have got more done, but what can you do? All we can do is wake up tomorrow and get it done. All right, I've said bye about 3 times now. Hope you all have a good one. Love, respect. Gonna try to just end the stream here and not Instagram so it goes the full way.